All right, I got an interesting one here. Um, Cousin car get towed in, wouldn't start, sat for a month. Long backstory. Long story short, is here, and I gotta get it running. I'll just give you the stuff for what as far as what happened later. But I'm trying. From what I understand, it didn't want to rotate from what they described it. But when people say, "Well, it ain't turning over," there's specific information you need. Like, is the car cranking? Like, does it rotate when you try to start it up? That's the crank, but no start. It doesn't hit and catch. So, but it's cranking. I'm hoping there was something missing translation here. But what was interesting was I heard that it was making this buzzing noise, and I heard the buzzing noise it was making, and it wound up being the injectors were pulsating. The car sounds like it was flooded when I got it to crank, because when I hit the key initially to start up, it didn't do anything, but eventually it started to rotate. And it sounded like it was the engines, the cylinders were washed out. They were flooded. Like it had some low compression. But when I popped the hood, because I heard that buzzing noise, the injectors were pulsating. They were going like, they were going ham. So let me see if I can get it to do it. And I'm going to post the camera up, and then we're going to try to figure this out later, because I already got something else I got to work on. I was under the impression that there was something wrong with the starting circuit. But the engine obviously is rotating. Well, trying to crank, but it's just not starting. I'll be honest, I was in the midst of pulling codes and I got to rotate. So I'm like, oh shit, if it's rotating, I can get it started up. But when I found out the injectors were pulsating, going crazy and clicking, then I'm like, okay, it's flooded. So we're dealing with flooding conditions right now. Holding the accelerator pedal ain't gonna clear this out, because I got out the car, and for 5 seconds, those injectors were just going crazy. Hopefully I can get it to do it again, but in the meantime, I'm going to try to see if we can pull any codes first and see what's going on. And what I'll do, maybe I can pull the fuel pump fuse without air pump, and then I can see about just keeping the fuel supply for the injectors. But let me see what goes. Let's just do an auto scan, because it seemed like there's a problem with the computer. And there's nothing really with external besides the computer that's going to cause those injectors to pulsate like they did, because that's what gives it its duty cycle. We got body control module codes, powertrain control module, chassis. Let's see what will come up with these. Let's see what we got. Report. Mass airflow circuit. I mean, that's if they were, map. That's what they trying to put some. I smell starter fluid in there too. Generator. He did replace the alternator. I'm not sure why people replace alternators when the car isn't running. Security data circuit. Okay. In the body control module. So thought the car was being stolen, but I'm not sure why the injector can rely memory reset, battery low voltage from the battery being replaced, lost communication with PCM from the battery being replaced. I'm gonna kill all these codes. I'm gonna erase everything and see if we can get something that immediately comes back. So already something's in the powertrain control module. Maybe something has lost communication. I'm gonna hit him again. Maybe it has to go through a specific procedure as far as clearing everything out of it. Clear it again. Nope. Okay, so at least we got one that's staying solid. So let's see what we got going on. Is it security related? Deployment. What's this? Solenoid valve body. So okay, so that's with the ABS. not worried about that. Where's the... Okay, generator performance failed. The alternator? Generator performance failed. And it ain't even running. Why would it even... Let me try this. Let me disconnect the alternator and see what happens, because I'm not sure why I would have a generator performance. Let's see if that code... Maybe, that's interesting right there. Let me see if let me pull that out, because it does get feedback from there. Okay, that's still present. So it's probably a feedback loop system. It could be an L terminal. So I'm gonna check the lamp inside of them. Cook this alternator back. I could check 12 volts on there. How many wires on? It's 2 wires. Let's go in the car. Alright, so we're in the car. So this doesn't have a regular battery light, but the battery indicator is on there, if I recall properly. That is weird that we got a alternator code. That's interesting. I wish you could hear the noise that the... There you go. There's the noise. There's the noise it was making. Damn, I wish I could catch it. Let me see if I can. We'll try to catch it again. I'm gonna get this noise so y'all can hear it. Tell you what though, in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this fuel pump fuse in an effort to prevent any more fuel consumption it may have. Fuel pump relay, that's what supplies that. I'm just gonna pull the, well, if I pull the relay, PCM feeds power to that. So if I pull the fuse, I might not have any codes related to it. Let me pull the fuse right there. So we're not gonna have any fuel pump activation. So when I do start it up, it's just not gonna keep flooding the cylinders out. And at some point, maybe it'll hit and start up. That noise that I'm hearing, that tapping noise, sound like the AC compressor is engaging also. There it goes. There it goes. The injectors are going on. Going off like crazy. Seems like a bad ground somewhere. If I add that, I'm gonna start checking grounds. Look how it changes. Oh look, this wasn't even plugged in. Interesting. So the injectors are going crazy. The only thing that causes them to pulsate is the PCM. I'm gonna leave it. I mean, it does change the frequency once I disconnect them. So it's gotta be, yep, there's the compressor again. That's interesting. That's real interesting. So what in the world would cause the misunderstanding between the engine not running and a duty cycle with the injectors? So I mean, naturally I would assume the PCM is defective because that's what controls the duty cycle for the injectors. But I mean, obviously it doesn't crank, so it doesn't want to start. Now it doesn't. It thinks there's something wrong with the alternator. The alternator is the only thing that's given the code right now. So the alternator and the AC compressor have something mutually in common. Let me check the voltage on the yellow, the orange wire, and see what that points to, and see if that gives me any type of clue. There we go again. I heard the alternator, not the alternator, but I heard the AC compressor. You know what I could do? Let's disconnect the, we could disconnect the power for the alternator or the AC compressor, since they're mutually in common, and see if it shuts up. Let me see if I can find it. That's alternator. That's air relay. Fan. Ignition. So the AC compressor relay fuse. I swear I thought it was on. AC compressor relay coil. Did I miss something else? There, oh, there you go. It's in that one. Okay. Shows how much I know. Alright, let's go back into this one. So we already pulled the fuel pump. This is going to be the AC compressor relay down at the bottom. So if we pull this, then we should take our 10 volts. Not 10 volts, we should remove our 12 volts here. Alright, so we killed the battery supply for the alternator. So let me see if I try to start it now, will it wind up making that same noise like the compressor's trying to activate? Alright, so another clue, there's no compressor activation once I pull this out. So we pull the fuse, no compressor activation. So we got to figure out, okay, what controls, is there anything mutually in common with the injectors and the AC compressor? And I want to say The PCM, obviously, because the PCM controls the injectors. The PCM also has the means of controlling the AC compressor because of the information that it receives from various sensors. So if the car is running high, it can deactivate it based off the load in certain conditions. Could we have a bad PCM? That's what it seems like. Or could it still wind up being a bad ground? So again, if the injectors are just going crazy, the PCM, the AC compressor is getting active, we have a code for the alternator. The alternator also is mutually connected with the PCM in regards to the field terminal, because the duty cycle for the charging circuit goes to the PCM from the wiring diagram. I know that they have the means of potentially lying to you, but I mean these are mutually exclusive. That is mutually in common. So thinking out loud here, alternator is controlled through the PCM. AC compressor controlled through the PCM. Fuel injectors controlled through the PCM. But could it be a bad ground? So one thing I could look at and see if we probably have bad grounds is if the PCM, the voltage value that it displays is insignificant. I mean, I got the car to start. No, I didn't get it started. I got it to rotate. Sorry. Let's look at engine data 2. Oh, my key's off. Yeah, I keep missing it. Like when I flipped it, there it goes, zapping again. I flipped the switch on, the injectors went crazy. Now, here it goes. Well, I was thinking like it'd be no point to hook up an oscilloscope to it or anything because I mean we can obviously hear it pulsating. Mass effluent hertz. There's a compressor again. Let's see what we have here. Trying to see if anything look abnormal. I do wonder. There's our ignition voltage here. Generator command is off for the generator signal command. Just looking for any abnormalities. We have no AC signal. AC relay command. Let's see if we can find the injector duty cycle. Whoa, look at why is the crank sensor having the value? Look at that. That's interesting. That's real interesting. There's, that is part of the crank system. We do have an RPM value. Let's see if the engine, there's no engine speed value. We do have a desired idle speed. There's no way it thinks it's running because we don't have an engine speed, but one of the crank sensors possesses a value, which, I mean, it could be, it's constant. So what it could be, we have like a low voltage signal and it's picking up a value of 467 RPM. And that'll be hence is why we got our duty cycle for the injectors. I don't know if I can pull that up on this part of it. If I'll get an injector duty cycle. Unless I overlooked it. Yeah, here you go. Pulse width. Yeah, we do. There's one right there. 17 milliseconds. That's crazy. So I don't want to lose that data. Let me take a screenshot. Let me pull this also. If I can fit everything in there. I'm thinking, I want to cycle the key on and off, but I'm thinking like I could potentially lose that information. But it seemed like if I leave it off for a little while, it'll start buzzing. Let's go sit in the car. Let's try this again. I'm gonna turn it off. Injector pulse with modulation change. Maybe I wonder if that information got stuck in there when I was starting the vehicle. But what's strange is, like, okay, we have no RPM signal. I'm not sure if that would populate while I'm trying to start the vehicle. So I might have to hook up the oscilloscope too and see if I got an actual signal from the crank sensor. I don't know. It don't seem like I can trust any information that I got. I might have to just kind of buckle down and go ahead and hook up the oscilloscope and see if I can see if there's any waveform for a fire event, and then see if I actually see any information getting picked up from the crank sensor. Let's see if I can. But what's interesting is I just wouldn't. Here's our injector pulse width. Let me try one more thing. Hook up that AC compressor fuse. One of the other easiest things I could do is pull out a spark plug and see what we got here. This is the most accessible one. Oh wow, it's barely sitting in there. Okay. Hold on a second. Yeah, I was tripping. See how flooded it is. Oh yeah, she is wet. Just like my ex-girlfriend. I tell you what, look at that thing, man. Alright, I want to see if any fuel comes out when we try to start it up. I'm just kind of curious. I don't know what y'all saw, and I am also curious if it actually fires. I could take a test light, but let's see. Should hear like a tap or something. So luckily I was able to. So what we just saw, we just heard something. When the thing started to go, oh shit, it lost the information. Seriously. You saw for a blip it was like at 2,000 RPM. And let's see if it's saved. Keep getting phone calls. Let me see, no throttle position. Loop. So injector pulse width. Nothing crazy. It won't do it. So spark. It's at 12 degrees. So it thinks is running current gear 3. That's crazy. There's our RPM again on that 18 by crank sensor. Ignition mode bypass. This is interesting. It's not starting or anything right now. So I wonder if there's any type of security codes present. Let's go into the PCM, see if there's any additional codes that popped up. Mass airflow, low frequency, manifold, injector control circuit, injector 3, 5, 8, generator performance. You know what? Since I did something that I shouldn't have done last time, let's see if there's any freeze frame data. Freeze frame. It's really like it's a bad PCM. That's what it's honestly starting to seem like. Manifold pressure sensor circuit high. I probably could go after that too. I think that'll probably be the easiest thing. Because the bad crank sensor is not going to do this. It's not going to take perceived information and work with what it assumes. It's just not going to work. So I get this camera stand right. All right. So I'm thinking, let me go back here. Well, either way, I still would have needed to erase the freeze frame data and see what would have been an immediate comeback, because it's really starting like a bad computer. And the generator, even though the information I had from that was, I did not test the L terminal, but I do believe that if we have some misinformation in the computer system and there are other PIDs that are not meeting normal operation, then the code setting criteria is going to be present, because the vehicle thinks it's running and it's not running. And I mean, hence this is why we kind of got the injector circuit. Okay, so if we got let me see what this one says. Look at that. So we had mass airflow. Well, we did start it up. Let me see what the RPM was. Barometric pressure. Doesn't give me any RPM. But unless this is not I think this is not a desired engine speed. That's why I overlooked that. So if this is the actual engine RPM that it thought that it was, then the vehicle obviously didn't reach no 2600 RPM while trying to crank So I because of the multiple codes that we got, is I can't imagine. I'm just not going to say it's a crank sensor, not at all. And I'm not even going. I can't bow down and just change the crank sensor. But I am kind of curious as to why, I didn't see any RPM while starting the car up. So what I could do is still scope the crank sensor, make sure I have the appropriate voltage from the PCM. Because if we don't have voltage coming out the PCM, proper reference voltage, then it's just going to be a bad computer. Because I'd imagine I still should have a good RPM signal when trying to start the vehicle up. We don't have that, and it's kind of like iffy. It's like it's doing what it wants to do. Let me think on this one. One thing that's interesting is that the injectors are working, but it's not trying to fire. So I'd imagine if the injectors were trying to, if they were going to operate, then we should get fire also. So logically, it's really leaning towards the computer system, because I tried to start the car up. We got this. It's doing what it wants to do as far as activating injectors and the AC compressor. We have codes, but if it's going to think that it's running and generate a false RPM signal, we should still get fire too. Why is not firing from the coils unless the coils have went bad because of, well, I don't see how the coils could go bad if they're not stuck open or stuck in a firing state where it's overloading them. I'm really leaning towards a bad PCM. Let's take well, I'll tell you what, I want to take a look at the PCM. The PCM is going to be under that air box over there. And we could have some moisture in there. Oh well, let's shut it up. If you gotta hit it and it's broke and it changes, then obviously that's your problem. Let's pull that PCM out and inspect it, because I'm trying to take the closest route. I'm invested 35 minutes or so, 40 minutes into it right now, and I don't want to do anything unnecessary. Again, I'm repeating myself. I know some people don't like that, but you can get the hell on and go to Chris Fix. But the crank sensor, when they don't work, they don't work. When you get bad signals, the component just will interpret bad signals. It's not going to output any type of it's not going to output any action based off the information it's taken in. So we can negate having to diagnose or just check the crank sensor. That's irrelevant. Charging system, I can understand, well, maybe something shorted out and then it's affecting the AC compressor. That's mutual in common. However, the mutual thing that they have in common is the PCM. Again, that brain has to take in that information and apply action and do the output. It's getting in the paperwork, it's taking orders, and it's doing what it's told. Sometimes PCMs fail in the fashion where conditions don't call for certain operations, such as the injectors, and obviously it's getting bad information. Is the PCM, the best way I can describe it, man, is it's retarded right now. The PCM is retarded. It doesn't function normal. The PCM basically just have comprehension issues. That's the best way I can really put it, besides calling the computer mentally retarded. But we can look at the pins. I did knock on a damn thing and it did change some stuff. And there's more shit that could have got down in there, and who knows? I've seen PCMs have some cruddy little boogers on there. It'll do that. So let's pull that out and take a look at it. And I got to start working on this other vehicle shortly. This really indicates how lazy I am right now. It doesn't smell burnt or anything, so I'm like curious. Is there any water damage or whatever's in here? Can I pull this off? I put them on a stool and watch I forget where I put them. Smells fine, but there's another level down there, so it could be something. It doesn't necessarily have to superficially look burnt up. So I thought moisture probably would be our culprit. And I mean, and I've had them just be able to I've had them just give out bad information. I mean, it happens. So another interesting note, when it's doing that, it's not going to start because it thinks the car is running. All right, let me try it now. I just hooked up an induction timer light, and it's still not, it's not doing anything. So regardless, could it be in the module though? Let's see. Wow. So I moved the wires over at the module and it started working. I've never had a bad module do that. Never. Wow. But I will say the signal does go from the crank sensor to the module and back out, from what I understand. I'm going to have to look at the wiring diagram again, but I can hook up there and be able to pull the crank signal from the crank sensor at the ignition control module. That is very interesting. Let's see if so we got it to hit, so I know for a fact it'll run now. So let's get it running and let's move those wires and see what happened. We're making progress here. Pull the fuel pump fuse out. Yeah, it's burning now. I can smell it. Let me spray some supplemental fuel in here, see if it'll hit. They'll let me know it's not flowing. Cool. Let me move these wires down here. So they did change. Cool. All right. Awesome. Let's hook up the fuel pump fuse, get it running, and play with those wires down there since we're making some significant progress. noise, play with the wires, it stops. All right, let's go. It should start. Alright, let's play with the wires over here, see what happens. Dang. All right, I don't know if this is good or bad. I mean, the car, we found where the problem lies, but damn, this is new. I'm gonna be honest, I never had it happen, like a module do that number, but it's what could happen. Could happen, being that this sends the information back to the PCM, is that something internal has shorted out, send the low voltage signal that read approximately 200 or 2000 RPM, which made the vehicle think that it was operating. Damn, that's interesting. So basically, it has to be on the output side going to the PCM's input. But now it's not like breaking since I moved some wires around. This is new. This is a new one. Let me do some thinking. At least I got the car running so I can move it out the garage. Let me formulate a game plan. Sorry, I had O'Reilly's popping up to drop some stuff off the air filter. So is this ignition control module has quite a bit going on. Like I said, we already know it receives a signal from the crank sensor and also from the cam position sensor, and then it sends that signal back out and then receive information when to control the signals, from what I understand. So it does quite a bit. So it makes sense for this device to be able to potentially go haywire if something fails. However it decide to fail internally, generate an inappropriate signal, send that back out to the PCM, and the PCM make a determination of what needs to go down. And I'm thinking, like, since I go off the logic, like, cars are stupid. Cars are stupid in the sense of they're not going to do anything they're not told. So once that PCM get told that, hey, this is what we got going on, the computer only knows what to do based on what the information it receives. All right, so that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking the module's bad. I'm gonna try one more thing before I just say, look, I'm gonna go through and throw a module on here because it's working now. I'm gonna try my best to get a signal of like something defective from it. I can't guarantee it's gonna work, but the low voltage, the low RPM signal is going to be the 3X pickup, and I'm gonna hook up to the input and the output of that, and I'm gonna do a wiggle test, and hopefully I can probably get some abnormalities on the signaling side going out. I'm hoping that I can. I'm not making any promises because everything works now. And I guess in hindsight, it would have been better if I would have went straight to the PCM and would have been able to retrieve a signal going into the PCM. But the problem is I need to see what's going into it also to be able to compare the two. So I'm going to pull out the oscilloscope, start it up, and see what happens. So I'm going to get all that laid out. I'm not going to go through the process of how to do it and all this other stuff because it's just a little too complex. And
just once I get my time bases right, we'll just look at some easy stuff, just the numerical values and the waveforms. And I'm gonna do some wiggle tests. Hell, I might even I don't know what else I could do. Maybe try playing with the connector, moving it back and forth. Maybe our issue was inside the harness, but there's no oil in there. Just throwing out some other stuff that has happened. I've had vehicles have oil in the harness and within the connector to where the oil will be a conductor and supply the signaling side with it's a bias voltage. So it'll supply with a voltage. It'll just jump and it'll get poor signals. I mean, that's not the case with this. This is very dry. But I will say my cousin do keep his car very clean. I mean, he loves his vehicle. So it's a possibility he may have cleaned it, got water in it, and that inside of that connector is potentially what caused the conditions that he had experienced. So it would not be a bad idea to pull that harness off and see what has happened, because it's a possibility me wiggling things may have caused a bridging of a liquid that is a conductor to go into a different orifice and break that connection. So let me try some things. This is just what I came up with, and if it pans out, if it works, I'll probably just leave it hooked up for a day. Come back to it in the morning, and just hook up the oscilloscope and with all the wires and stuff connected, and see if there's any changes. So let me do that. All right, I got getting my stuff set up here. I can't remember these part numbers, man. What is this? The 408 or something. I got the Alltel maxi scope. I can't remember all this the numbers, but I'm using my newer scan tool, which is probably outdated now, the MK908. For those who really are adamant about getting part number information, I'll just have to put the oscilloscope in there. But that oscilloscope is pretty old. You can see I need some new BNC cables. Well, I guess once you repair the cables, I mean they work a long time like they're supposed to, but the new ones you're gonna have to repair. I did a whole video on that. Anyway, I digress, man. This is irrelevant. So we're going to hop in and hook up those wires. I got some some notes here. The D, which is gonna be purple and white, it should be the 3X output to PCM. And I'm not sure which one's going to be 3X, but I'm going to try the G, which is the yellow, and H, which is the light blue and white. So I'm going to obviously hook up to what I know going to the PCM. That's one of the important signals I need to be on, which is going to be the purple and white. Just looking at the wiring diagram and the color, I kind of determine what's A and what's B. So it seemed like it's from right to left. A, B, C, D, and purple is gonna wind up being that. I think. Don't hold me on that. But that's what it seems like. Because the closer I look, the more different things are, and that's why I don't trust wiring diagrams like that. So I can zoom in. I'll probably have to get a light. All right, we're getting channel B hooked up. Gonna put my ground in. And where's my black? Black, here we go. It's gonna take this, and I should just be able to hook it up, just touch the coil. I mean, it should be able to not ground myself. I should get some type of, yep, there you go, some type of signal. And we're on the by 3. Let me show you. I ain't gotta do anything crazy. Yep, so there's number 1 firing, and we can see that there's 3 squares for every 360-degree rotation. So I mean, the event is only going to fire once per event. So that's that. So we're good. So we're on our by 3. I just need to hook up to the output no, the input. So we already got the out. I just need to hook up on the signal coming in. Let me see if I can find that. So it might either be the green, the G, the yellow. So let me pierce that real quick. Nope. So that's the by 18 while everything was broken. Because even then, if I would have messed with this, hooked up the oscilloscope when it was broken, I still would have probably got a working vehicle. The only other thing I could do is pull the connector off, inspect that, and hope there's some moisture in there. Because I mean that could be a thing. Only other thing I could really do if that's fine is just replace the module and all the coils. And I'm gonna put it this way: the resistance test, if I was to do an ohm test on those, it wouldn't say too much of anything. And as far as knowing the efficiency of them, the coils, I would need an amp clamp. I don't have an amp clamp, truth be told. I don't trust the resistance test, truth be told, because I mean that will definitely point you in the wrong direction. Too many variances with that, unless the component is like legitimately broke. Let me do some thinking. I'm gonna pull this connector off just to see if there's any condensation or anything in here. It's there. Probably likely isn't, unless it burnt off because the engine's warm. There's our connector. It looks great. The module looked like it was replaced already. I might have to give him a call and ask him if he tried replacing the module. Because if he replaced the module to correct this problem, in effort to correct the problem, and that didn't resolve it, then probably what I was thinking was probably incorrect. Unless one of the coils had failed and caused some internal damage, and he replaced the module with the bad coil. Typically though, when you get a bad coil, I'd imagine it'll constantly misfire. So I'm still checking some things. I just want to show you that I'm checking grounds now, so that's not negated. I got the blue tracer on ground, just 1 volt. I'm assuming ground should typically be below 300 millivolts, and it is, the maximum is around about that, and the average is showing is ground. It's a good ground here, so I'm not stressed out about it. Just gonna monitor that for a little bit and see how it works out. The ground on the module with, I want to say M and J, those are mutually integrated right there behind the module. So it's going to be down there. I did move it around a little bit and nothing changed, so I'm still screwing around with it. I did call my cousin to see if he actually tried changing the model, because it does look good. And I'm wondering if he happened to clean the engine bay with water and water happened to get in there, because that will definitely do it. So once I find out something, I'll definitely let you know. But as far as any codes, no codes present. Alternator code is gone. There's nothing in the history. Well, not in the history, but there's nothing present since everything's been running. So everything is running perfectly fine at the moment. I'm still leaning towards the module. That's where my best educated guess is going to be based off of what we experience, and I'll keep you up. All right, so talked to my cousin, and he did say the only thing that they replaced when it was down. That's right, because I didn't tell you the backstory. So he said he was driving on lunch break, and it just stalled on him on the road, and it would not start up after that. So when he got it towed home, it sat for a month, but within that month, they tried replacing the alternator, starter, and the battery with no avail. They tried a couple of things between them, but it didn't work. So here we are. Now what he said, he couldn't get it to do anything. It said nothing, but he did mention that noise that we were hearing, which were the injectors. Now, I've called and I priced. I told him, asked him what he wanted. He loved AC Delco stuff. He's a really big Chevy person. Don't care for these cars. And we're going to go with AC Delco coils and ignition module. And it's going to be a little bit over $500 for all that, not including labor and time and stuff. So that's what we're going to do. And I cannot, for the life of me, get over the fact that this is the only thing that logically makes sense. If I'm shooting apart at it, it's like with the name, but this is the closest thing I got right now. And simply because how the signal is. I know how the signal is. The signal will go from the crank to the module, from the module to the PCM. And based off all the context clues I mentioned, I'm just concluding I'm just going to replace this module, especially with the wiggle test. I can move those wires and some things happen. And if the pins or something internal has gone awry and we got some merging, whatever complex situation that had manifested inside of that caused some interruption or interpretation of voltage signals that got sent out to the computer, that's the only way. And so I'm going to shoot apart at it. So I might document putting the coil on there, but we know that the car runs fine. There's no codes present. It starts up perfectly fine now. I changed the air filter and stuff too, so it starts up perfectly fine. And there's no more codes. The alternator code, we already know how that got manifested, so that's negligible, being that but we're using it as a context clue based on the car, assuming it was running. So that was one of the clues why I'm replacing the module, but that's non-existent right now. Everything works perfectly fine. And that wiggle test, man, that just kind of gave it all away as far as location. If I move a wire or a module and it starts correcting itself, it's likely going to be that thing damn close to it, especially being that they had plenty of time to fool around this engine for a month, putting a starter on it, an alternator is right in there. I'm pretty sure they moved the wires a little bit, moved something, and it still didn't correct it. It still did not rotate. We made so much progress by being able to get it to rotate, and ultimately getting it to run that, that the only thing I've done different and was, I guess, through a process of elimination. I'm just going with this. So you saw what we did. I'm talking enough, but I try to save my back. I try to save all my talking till now. This is the last part of the video. So now you know. But if anything happened, I'm good for it. If anything happened, I'm definitely going to update and let you know. I'll put it in the description, put the date on it, and treat it like a little case study. So if anything happened, I'll definitely update. I don't know if I had anything else to add. You can find any video on how to replace the module. As far as the ground, I tested the grounds. The voltage was fine. We did have a maximum of like almost 1 volt, but there was probably spikes that the oscilloscope was measuring, but the average voltage was still very low. It was still below 300 millivolts. So that's a really good ground, really good. Well below that was like negative 90. It's on the average, so really good ground on that. Power. I'm not going to worry about the power going into the module from the crank sensor, and I'm gonna explain why. Because the outputs, the vehicle, when it was making an assumption that it was running, obviously had a strong enough signal internally to where it was able to provide a recognizable value. The outputs, I mean, they look strong. That's going to the PCM. The inputs look perfectly fine. And I'm not going to sit there and question a little wave that we had that when I was looking at the waveform. I mean, those things can happen depending on if Pearson pins are not well connected. I mean, if it comes back, I'm going to definitely update a video, but I just don't see anything outside the realm of this module. So, but I don't want to sit there and talk and just throw all my ideas, but this is just my conclusion, what I'm going to throw on there. But if anybody knows anything, hell, let me know. But I mean, I was obviously speculating the computer initially, and you back test your theories, and luckily I was wrong, and I was like, well, the computer didn't smell burnt. Normally, I'll be honest, they normally smell burnt, but normally you will have, if you have an internal fault, like some of the Chrysler computers, you will have internal fault codes. Oh, my light done died. I had one Chevy that I had to replace the PCM in. We had a bad signal for the cam position system. I think it was a P0340 code that I had on the van a while ago, and we tested that. There was just a strong signal that kept generating a cam position code, if I recall properly. If that was the case with this, that wiggle test wouldn't have worked. The wiggle test worked, and it changed whatever parameters it was fixed in, and things started working appropriately. So I'm gonna live up to my name, and shoot a part at it. If anything happened, I'll definitely update. But hit that link, subscribe to the channel, stay informed, have that reassurance on my work. See you next one.